Everyone in from the waiting room, so thank you for joining us. My name is Marcus Anscombe. I'm the Director of Graduate Admission at Roger Williams University, and I'm pinch hitting today for Tracy Collum, who's our webinars chair. She couldn't be with us today, so happy to jump in. And I want to thank our presenters from ACT and NRCCUA. We're going to talk a little bit about optimizing your graduate recruitment strategy in just a second. If you have questions throughout the session, please be sure to enter them in the questions box. And what we're going to do is we're going to allot time at the very end to get to all of your questions. So we're going to have them focus on their content first, and we'll answer any questions that you have at the latter part of this. So thank you for taking the time to join us. We have some other webinars coming up, including one next Tuesday with Holly Wilbanks from Wilbanks Consulting. She'll be talking about preparing your graduates, current students, and also talking about your prospective students about the job market and the value of a master's degree and so on. So she'll be talking to us about that. And then we have on the 15th of June, our partner of CGS, they'll be talking to us about their the NAGAP CGS partner survey that we've done. So you'll hear some more content there. But I want to thank ACT and NRCCUA for their continued partnership with us and their support of everything that we're doing with graduate enrollment. And they're here to present to you how to optimize your graduate recruitment strategy with intent-based marketing. We're joined by Reva Levin, who's the Vice President of Digital Strategy there at ACT and NRCCUA, as well as Jason Stevens, who's the Regional Director of Digital Strategy. So I want to pass it over to them and thank you all for being here.
Thank you very much, Marcus. Thank you so much, NAGAP, for having us. I'm Reva Levin. I'm the Vice President of Digital Strategy. I've been with ACT NRCCUA for 4 years now. Prior to that, I worked also in digital marketing in the higher ed space, and pretty much I've spent my entire career in digital marketing. I'm so excited to be here. Graduate and adult learners are some of my favorite subjects when it comes to how to reach them and engage with them. I'm also so excited to be joined by my good friend and colleague, Jason Stevens, and I'll ask Jason to introduce himself.
Thanks, Reva. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. My name is Jason Stevens. As Reva mentioned, I'm the Regional Director of Digital Strategy here at ACT NRCCUA. Going on about 3 years here with the company. Before that, I had about a 15-year career in digital marketing with several mass media companies. So I made the switch to hire ed about 3 years ago, and it's been a great move. Excited to share what we have for you today. Just taking a quick look at our agenda, we are going to jump right in looking at trends in graduate and adult enrollment. We'll talk a bit about the topic of the day, which is intent-based marketing, and then we'll dive into those marketing strategies that we're going to focus on: search engine marketing, keyword remarketing. We'll spend a fair amount of time on YouTube, as well as some best bets for driving grad and adult enrollment. We'll wrap up with some key takeaways and leave hopefully plenty of time for some Q&A. A bit about who we are as a company. At our core, we're a mission-driven organization focused on helping students and institutions. Really, you could break down our company with 3 primary goals. I like to break it down to the who, the what, and the where. So basically, we've got a couple of resources: our student search resources and enrollment analytics resources that focused on the who, helping organizations decide who to communicate to. They're going to be best fit prospective students for their institution. We then have a robust resources available in institutional research, and that really will help institutions refine their message. So the what of what we do. And then the traditional engagement and digital solutions engagement tools are going to be the where to talk to these prospective students. And that's what we're here to talk to you about today.
Thanks, Jason. So there is very good news for graduate and adult learning enrollment teams. You know, we've gone through an unprecedented and very strange time. And I think all of us as marketers are sitting back and we're trying to understand, what has COVID done to our potential for driving new applications, new interest, new enrollment for our different programs. So again, here at ACT NRCCUA, we have the luxury of having our sister company, Edge of Ventures Research, underneath our umbrella. And it was great to be able to turn to that group and turn to their 2020 adult prospect survey to look for some clues as to what the market will look like this summer, this fall, next winter, and beyond. So this is a lot of data on this slide, so let me kind of break this down. The first thing I'd like to turn your attention to is that there are 4 buckets or 4 potential cohort groups, if you will. The committed, that's the student that says, you know what, in about a year, I think I'm definitely going to enroll into adult learning, adult continuing ed, a graduate program. There's the hesitant cohort. That cohort says, you know what, I'd be interested in education, but I might need to work out daycare or elder care. I might need to work on finances. You know what, I might need to really understand what it is I want to do and where to apply myself. There's the skeptical. They're very difficult to market to, but they are very worthwhile because that cohort hasn't made up their mind. They want to be proven that the investment that they're going to make in their furthering their education is going to be worth it at the end of the day, that they might be positioned better to have better professional success, personal success, financial success. And then of course, like anything, there's a group that is just simply never going to be interested in what we're doing. When we look at this data across all 4 groups, the really exciting information here is that EduVentures surveyed adults in July 2019, pre-pandemic. They also surveyed adults in June 2020 in the thick of it. And they surveyed them again in October 2020, when we weren't quite sure how soon we were ever going to come out of this. The good news, if you look at the dark blue bars, is that in every group, we're seeing a fairly positive trend, right? There are more people that are seeing themselves as a committed, yeah, I think I'm in the market for an education this year. They're at 23% versus 14% in June. Only slightly down from pre-pandemic numbers. The hesitant group has actually gone down. Well, that's a good thing. We have less hesitancy and we have less skepticism as well. So that's very good news in terms of the marketplace. Let's look at the marketplace another way through the EduVentures lens. When we look at this question that EduVentures asked, has COVID-19 made you more or less interested in going to college or university? Well, 14% said, I'm much more interested than before. 31%, that's a big chunk, said, I'm somewhat more interested. And 47% said, I have no change either way. So we're not negatively affected there. Another way to look at this data is what is the type of degree, certification, program that they're most likely to pursue. There's a lot of information on this slide as well. I'll point your direction to some of the really good news for vocational or technical training. We see that in October 2020, there was an increase in people interested in pursuing that type of training or certificate. And we saw some pretty good stats for associate's degree and bachelor's degrees as well, and a slight decline in the master's degree category, but all told, not a substantial decline. So now that we know that the market is ripe for our message, you're probably ready to run out there and advertise your programs. But Jason and I are here today to say, wait, we want you to stop for a second and think about intent-based marketing, because intent-based marketing has the less risk and greater reward. To do intent-based marketing, one needs to really think about the motivation, the context, and the behavior. When we put motivation, context, and behavior behind our advertising choices, what platforms to advertise on, and behind our messages, what words to use and how to connect, we cut through all the clutter and all the noise and we make our ads count. And that means greater ROI and greater efficiency. So let's talk about who the degree-seeking adult is. Through the EduVentures lens, we can see that the average age of those looking for grad and adult degrees are between 25 and 54 years of age. They are more so to be 25 to 44, and I'll point you in the direction of the 25 to 34 bar. So they're clearly millennials. So when we think about millennials, we want to know, well, where are they and what platforms are they using? And what we're looking here is at the latest Pew research on social media use in 2021, so super relevant. And these were adults surveyed between January 25th and February 8th, so super recent. And we can see that YouTube is far and away one of the most used platforms that adults will turn to for researching anything online. And another really interesting statistic that I found is that millennials prefer YouTube over television 2-to-1. So that's something to really think about in your marketing. Facebook, of course, is very prevalent, as is Instagram and all the other usual suspects that you see in that list. So now we know a little bit about their age and where they are. Let's talk about what motivates these cohorts. So another great nugget of information that I pulled out of the adult prospect survey are the 4 different mindsets, categories that EduVentures puts adult learners into. The biggest segment is the career investment cohort, and that's in the bottom left quadrant there. That's the person who likes the career path that they're on, probably wants to stay in that career path, but definitely wants to rise in their ranks. Definitely sees education as a way to getting a promotion, getting more responsibility, and of course, earning more. Going to the right bottom quadrant, there's career through academics. 27% of all adult learners fall into that category. That's the second largest category, so that's significant. These are people who feel like academic rigor sort of defines them. They enjoy the pursuit of education. They like having a degree. It feels great to have that accomplishment under their belt. They're likely to have that diploma on their wall. Career renewal in the top right-hand quadrant is 18% of all adult learners. They're the ones who are rebooting their career. Maybe this pandemic caused them to be furloughed or lose their job altogether. And that really shook them to their core. And they need to feel like they're more in demand, more important. They want to make sure they have financial stability. And now they're starting to think about, well, what could I do? What skills do I need to have a career that would take me in a different direction and make sure that that quite possibly will never happen to me again? And then going back to the top left quadrant, personal discovery. That's the smallest group of the 4. But it's important also to know that this is the group that's probably been out of the workforce for a very long time. Maybe they were at home by choice, raising a family. Maybe they retired. And they see education as a way to kind of further their interests, answer their curiosities, make them feel more well-rounded and grounded. So when we look at adult learners, we also want to understand, what do they do in terms of their work life? So this is another great stat from the adult prospect survey, where we see that 59% of degree-seeking adults work full-time. That tells you these are really busy people. They're juggling a really busy job, possibly the demands of a family. They might be scooting some kids to daycare and trying to get to an early morning meeting. They might be trying to fit in a workout. These are all things that kind of you have to understand in terms of the context of their lives. 10% work part-time, 15% are unemployed, but we don't know if that's by choice. That may be because of the pandemic, and hopefully that will change. Now, I want to take the mindsets that we just talked about and the employment behavior, and I want to marry them together. Because when you look at the percent of adults employed by full-time, by mindset, it's pretty interesting. You can see that the folks interested in career investment are the ones most likely to work full-time, followed by career through academics, and then by career renewal. Probably no surprise, but I wanted to show you this data because I wanted you to understand how important those 3 cohorts are. And it's probably important for you to sit back and kind of understand, who is it that you enroll today and what mindset do you think they fall into? Do you want to find more like-minded people, or do you need to expand your marketing by looking and talking to a different cohort altogether? So let's talk about how we talk to them. When you want to appeal to the different mindsets, we'd like you to think about these tips. So the person who's thinking about career through academics, the one on the left, they're interested in rank, reputation, your faculty, the awards you've won, the badges you have, the power of your network, the power of your alumni. Personal discovery cohorts are thinking about passion. They want to pursue their passion, pursue their dreams. They want to lead, they want to fulfill. They are looking to change the world. They are looking for education as a means to do greater good. So they're looking to transform and empower. People who are interested in career renewal are your most price sensitive. So it's important to understand their language. They want to know how affordable you are. Can you accelerate my learning? Can you level up? Can I fast track my degree? I want to be in demand. And they definitely understand the concept of investing in themselves. And then lastly, career investment. Again, that's the group of people most likely to work full time, and they're very, very busy. So they're thinking about flexibility and convenience. They definitely want to advance or enhance their career. They want to lead a business. They might even be entrepreneurs. They want to take charge. They want to move up. So it's one thing to show you words to say. What I did was a little independent research to find the schools that are saying these things. So I went on a site called moat.com. It's MOAT.com. It's free. Anyone can use it. It's not perfect, but it is a great aggregator of different display ads used by different brands. And you can see the ads that different schools have out there and about when those ads were in market, when they were live. So I looked for 4 examples and I found them. And I'd like to share them with you here. Starting on the left, Career Through Academics. This is a great example of a school using Top Ranked. Advance your degree with a ranked and respected university. That clearly talks to that cohort that's interested in career through academics. In the personal discovery category, I love this ad because this is exactly what we might have said to them ourselves. Make your mark, make it matter. Again, this cohort wants to do the greatest amount of good with their degree. And then career renewal, you can't get any more direct than increase your earning potential. That's what they want to know. Again, they're price sensitive. They want that degree, but they can't go into debt, and they need to know that they can immediately see a return on that investment. And then lastly, the career investment group. I love this example. It takes courage to become a nurse, and it takes courage to become a better one. So again, I'm staying in the career track I originally chose. I just want to be better at it. So those are some examples of creative in action. I'm going to give it back to Jason to talk about, now that you kind of know who your cohort is, what they're thinking about, how to talk to them. Jason will lead us through some of the best practices for reaching these adult and grad prospects efficiently. So Jason?
Thanks, Reva. Absolutely. I like to think of search engine marketing as the cornerstone of adult marketing for grad and adult marketing. 87% of adult prospects are using a search engine. 92% of those searches are starting with Google. This is the first place to go. If you have a limited budget or a robust budget, when it comes to intent-based marketing, you're going to be able to get in front of the individuals who are actively looking for keywords that are relevant to the programs you want to promote. There's a little bit of work involved with this strategy. There is some optimization to garner the engagement you're looking for, but there's a great deal of measurement available through this to assist with that engagement. So I just want to talk a bit about how to make the best use of that real estate. It is incredibly valuable real estate. And, you know, in addition to claiming the real estate, you want to make sure that you're putting something there that is very valuable. When you think about a typical search engine marketing ad, I'm sure this screen looks very familiar. Anytime you've done a Google search, you've seen sponsored ads at the top. So here's some call outs to keep in mind when you think about writing ads for search engine marketing. You want to have an incredibly strong headline. It should be maybe a headline that speaks to that mindset for the cohort that you're going after. So as you can see, online BBA degrees, complete your degree online. This is clearly speaking to convenience and flexibility. Make good use of those call out extensions. Again, that's what's in bold here, BBA online, bachelor's degree, 100% online. These are going to catch attention and they're going to garner interest in the message that you're promoting. Site links are something that unfortunately is not used all the time, but there's a few amazing benefits to site links. The whole goal with a search engine marketing ad is to get your searcher to click on your ad to get them to your .edu. Of course, with site links, you have up to 4 additional opportunities to earn a click. So as you can see, affordable tuition, career-focused curriculum, accredited nonprofit, admission requirements. These are all opportunities to take that searcher deeper into the place that they want to start exploring your institution and the program that you're promoting. An additional sort of side benefit, as you can see, this ad takes up more physical space on the Google page. And so you've now enabled you to have more of that real estate and your competitors to have a little bit less of that sort of above the fold real estate on the Google search result page. I like to think about search engine marketing as sort of the always in stock methodology. And I'll just sort of digress from digital marketing for a moment to kind of make sense how I think about this. So, Walgreens, for instance, doesn't know when I'm going to have a headache. So they have to have headache medication, ibuprofen, etc., in stock all the time, so that when I have a headache, I can go there, I can get the medication, I'm all good to go. Search engine marketing is very much the same way. You don't know when a master's degree or an adult degree seeker will come into the market. You really do have to be in stock all the time with an evergreen campaign. This allows you to be there at that moment when they're entering the market, so that you've got a chance at continuing to engage that prospective student and get them into your funnel. There's some additional benefits to evergreen search engine marketing as well. You might think of your typical recruitment season as being, over for a fall start, over, the summer months, etc. But by having sort of that evergreen methodology and running on a year-round campaign, you can actually see in this example to the right, because there's some automation and some intelligence built into this strategy, the click-through continues to be more successful as time goes on. The cost per click is going to be dependent on, competitors bidding for those same keywords. So we don't always want to pay the closest attention to that. We want to pay attention to the ultimate results, the result that's going to matter the most to you, which is that CTR on the right-hand side. In October, this campaign started out with a 2.58%. As we worked all the way into April, we ended up at a 4.78%. Some of the optimization is happening in the background there, but there's also some automation that's happening as well. And so that's an additional benefit of an evergreen marketing strategy. As technology develops and as these campaigns get more intelligent, there's some considerations to keep in mind. One thing to keep in mind is, to play along with that evergreen methodology, 15% of searches seen on Google are brand new every single day. So again, you've got intenders coming into your market all the time. Make sure you've got a message there. But also, understand that some of the newer technologies, whether it be, Alexa, encourages voice searches, the iPhone ability and Android ability encourage voice searches. And so there's different opportunities and more opportunities to be available and accessible. And then just the consideration journey is a little more complex maybe than ever before. Search is not just a lower funnel strategy, it's a top of the funnel strategy. And we like to make sure that you're in market all the time for that strategy.
Thanks, Jason. So when thinking about SEM, I thought about a particular client engagement that I worked very closely on, and I'm sharing some of the results of that SEM campaign with you here. This campaign ran October, November, and December of 2020. It was a $12,000 SEM spend, which of course is a cost per click, right? So there was, we were buying clicks with that $12,012. We delivered their ads 59,775 times. And we generated 13,052 clicks. Now, clicks divided by impressions delivered gave us an unbelievable click-through rate of 21.84%. And I think Jason and I see click-through rates, well, click-through rates can vary based on the keywords and the competitive nature for those bids. But click rates tend to be about 5%, 8%, 10%. So 21.84 was extremely high, but it's a sign that it can be done when done well, using some of the tips that Jason just shared. We also generated nearly 11,000 verified actions, and those are those zero bounce clicks, very intentional visits to the EDU site with people who are intent on doing something. And of those 10,983 verified actions, we can see that the majority went to graduate studies and 811 went to graduate admissions, which meant they drilled all the way down to apply. And that's great news. On the right, you can see what this little investment in SEM did to the overall traffic of their EDU site. Look at how that EDU site trended from October 1st all the way through the end of December. So as Jason mentioned, there was that benefit as well. Now, that average click-through rate of 21.84% was extremely high, but those are just the people that clicked. Think about all the other people that were in market at the same time that didn't click. Jason's going to talk about a really cool strategy that you can append to your SEM to really get the most out of the market. So, Jason?
Thanks, Reva. Yeah, just to pick up on that case study that you were just sharing with us, I'm going to sort of add on another layer that we recommend to all of our search engine marketing clients. And there's a great reason why. I like to think of search engine marketing as the insurance policy for missed opportunity. So on the right-hand side here, you can see that phenomenal SEM click-through that Reva just shared, about 22%. But let's look at the light blue piece of that pie, 78%. That means 78% of the individuals who were searching for a program or a degree that you offer did not click on your ad. They either clicked on someone else or they didn't click anywhere. You've got an opportunity now to sort of continually place your value proposition, your brand in front of them as they navigate around the internet, whether they're watching news, checking out the weather, looking at financial sites. You've got an opportunity to continue to place your message, your brand, your value statement in all of those places. It sort of follows them around a bit. We see this as being a very effective means to recapture that sort of lost opportunity, that 78%. You won't ever get all of them, but you'll certainly make up some great traction. We do have a bit of a case study here to share with that regard as well. Making use of this sort of display keyword retargeting strategy, we had a client that came to us basically with some frustration about their associates of science and nursing, and this is targeted towards individuals, adults that are working in healthcare. They were sharing that their SEM campaign wasn't yielding quite the conversion that they were looking for in a fairly pricey SEM market. So we recommended that they make use of the display keyword retargeting methodology. And what we're able to do is retarget those very same keywords that they were putting into an SEM campaign and target those individuals that were in market but not clicking on their ads. The net result is an overall $132 cost per applicant. Now that's driven by some really other significant numbers. 839 total verified actions to the key pages of their .edu relevant to this degree. And probably most importantly is the 32 verified visits to the client's apply portal. Now that $132 cost per applicant does not account for 32 applications. It was much less than that. So there's a lot of opportunities still to be had in this campaign. And this is actually an active campaign we have running right now.
These are great results. I love seeing that. You know, someone once said that the number one way to identify who will buy a car is to find the person who's searching for a car right now. The second best place to identify who's going to buy a car is find out who has their car in the repair shop. And that's why I like talking about YouTube, because YouTube has some incredible, elegant targeting capabilities that they borrow from their parent company, Google. YouTube is the second most used search engine in the world, and 74% of adults 18 plus are using it today. And as I mentioned before, millennials prefer YouTube to television, which is incredible. Some of the targeting that YouTube has is kind of akin to that repair shop analogy that I just mentioned, because YouTube is constantly watching what people are searching for and researching online, as well as borrowing from their parent company, Google, and all of the search behaviors that are happening there. So while someone might not be looking for an MBA or an MPH or an MHA degree right now, they could be looking for things like, what's it like to be a social worker? How hard is it to get an MSW? What do I need to do to go back to grad school? And these are searches that are happening on YouTube today. YouTube can take a combination of keyword searches on Google for degrees and look at affinity groups, people who are looking for other things, other content related to a potential college search. And they can give us an idea of who might be ready for a message. Then when that person is on YouTube looking at anything, it could be, how to make homemade mac and cheese, or, how to do some sort of craft project with their kids, we can serve up that YouTube pre-roll ad in their feed, and we can help brand the college or university and help raise awareness for your programs and opportunities like that. So we love YouTube, and here's a great example of YouTube driving grad applications. Our target were people who said they had a college degree who were looking at college-related content, AKA they were going to be a grad school or adult learner prospect. The results were incredible. When you look at the table on the right, you'll see that of the 200,000 impressions scheduled, by this time, we had run about 73% or 146,000 impressions. Of the 147,000 impressions run, their video was viewed 127,890 times for 5 seconds or more, because that's the definition of a view through rate. Now, if you divide total views by impressions delivered, the view rate is 87.01%. A typical view through rate, a good view through rate on YouTube, per YouTube, is 15%. So having a view through rate of 87% was pretty incredible. Take the 127,890 and divide it by 55.80%, or those that watched the video for its entire length, which was a 30-second video. And you'll see that there were 71,350 views of the total video. Now, I think to myself, what would be the cost of sending out 71,350 catalogs? Or what would be the cost of sending out 71,350 text messages or emails or postcards or view books? And I start to think that 200,000 impression campaign on YouTube, which is about a $5,000 expenditure, looks pretty good. Better yet, make sure that you have really good tracking and tagging in place, because what you ultimately want to understand is how many people went down your funnel and actually applied, inquired, or registered to visit. And in this case, we were able to show that we had 137 potential new grad students go to the application page and start to fill out their application, and most of them completed it. And so that was a really great return on investment. Jason, this is a campaign you work closely on. Do you want to talk about this and your work with engineers?
Yeah, absolutely. So we work with a client that's very focused on attracting working engineers that are interested in advancing their careers with certificates and advanced degrees. The struggle is that it's sometimes a little difficult to identify those individuals, and one of the strategies that we've had a great deal of success with is using some of the methodologies that Reva has just discussed, that the surgical ability to identify those individuals. We've been able to serve a very brand-friendly video. And this is a 30-second video, mind you. So that's something to keep in mind when you look at these stats here. We've been able to serve this video to working engineers that are that have a recent history of searching for keywords that are indicative of that they're in the market to obtain a certificate or advanced degree. One of the most important metrics to consider when it comes to YouTube or video marketing is the view rate. This particular campaign had a net effect of 301, almost 302,000 engaged views. That's an effective view rate of 57%. So for some benchmarking, YouTube says that 15% is a phenomenal view rate. So when you're able to deliver, almost 4 times that view rate to a very targeted cohort, you can expect some really strong results. These individuals were watching this video for, on average, 23 seconds out of this 30-second video. 30 seconds a long time on YouTube, as it turns out. But most importantly, we were able to track 584 quality engaged visits to very critical pages within the .edu. This client has continued to do this type of campaign multiple times now, as they see a great deal of lift in the kind of quality traffic on their site and the net results.
So we'll take you through some of our best bets for driving enrollment in FY22. We've touched on some of them today. There's so many great opportunities out there, and a lot of it depends on your budget, your particular programs, whether you are national in scope, or regional in scope. But we've talked about the YouTube pre-roll advertising. We've talked about search engine marketing, and certainly Jason shared great information about the search keyword remarketing. I'd probably also mention that there's some other great opportunities with mobile geofencing and programmatic audio, and even connected TV, and certainly retargeting on your own site. But if you have any questions about any of these other different strategies and tactics, Jason and I would be very happy to get an email and happy to answer anything we can for you. So let me just kind of wrap up here and say that Jason and I thought really hard about this, and we said, wow, what are the 8 key takeaways we would love you to get from this meeting? Well, intent marketing has less risk and a higher reward. So, please make that the centerpiece of your marketing campaign for graduate and adult learners. Search engine marketing is the best way to find those intenders, those actively shopping, if you will, for advanced education. Use all of your SEM real estate to your advantage. As Jason said, too few schools do. And it's something that Google gives you for free, and you want to make sure you use all of it. Pair SEM whenever you can, whenever budget allows, with keyword search display remarketing, and capitalize on all the active shoppers in your market who did not click, but who are still in the market for the programs you offer. Think about Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Snapchat. They are the most used social media platforms among US adults today. And think about YouTube, because it has many, many smart ways to find that person likely to begin their graduate degree or adult continuing ed search. Design ads that resonate with mindsets. Think about your own mindsets and who you want to talk to. Think about what best describes your enrolled students, and program your ads to really engage and compel and influence them. And whenever you can, use tags that will see 100% of your digital results. Tags should be able to record both post-click and post-impression traffic to your EDU site. And if you have more questions about that, Jason and I would be happy to answer that. So on behalf of Jason Stevens and myself, we want to thank you for your time. We want to thank NAGAP, and I'm going to turn it over to our wonderful host, Marcus Hanscom, for some Q&A.
Well, thanks, Reva and Jason. That was a great discussion on marketing and digital marketing, obviously specifically. We have a few questions from folks, so we'll make sure we get to those. And if anybody else has questions, please ask them in the questions box. The first question came in, to engage in remarketing, do you have to always be engaged in search engine marketing concurrently?
Jason, do you want to answer that one?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I was just getting ready to unmute as the question was being asked. So it's a fantastic question. and you do not have to do both concurrently. In fact, search engine remarketing, the keyword remarketing strategy is frequently a little more cost effective than search engine marketing. In very high media cost markets, you can accomplish similar goals by doing the keyword marketing strategy. We do see it working best together. That being said, you could certainly tackle keyword remarketing on its own. Yep.
And Jason, I'll just throw in a follow-up there that I think is an important distinction. Can you talk about remarketing, the keyword remarketing that you were talking about earlier versus site retargeting? Because they are two different things.
They absolutely are, yeah. And really the primary differentiator is site retargeting is retargeting the unique visitors that are already on specific pages of your .edu. The keyword retargeting is sort of tackling those individuals that have not yet been to your edu, but are identifying themselves as in market based on their keyword searches. So you can do both of those at the same time as well. And frequently that is often done because you want to be in front of those individuals that are they're looking for keywords relevant to your programs. And then once they've been to your site and you've had an opportunity to engage them on your site, but maybe you haven't garnered a request for information or an inquiry, you'd continue to remarket to those individuals, hoping to get them back to your site and another shot at earning that inquiry.
Well, and the elephant in the room on all of this kind of stuff is cost, right? And so if I know anything about my colleagues, we're not all sitting on big piles of money. So what kind of suggestions do you have? I mean, I think we tend to defer to retargeting being kind of the low-hanging fruit. That's probably the most cost-effective, where you've got folks that are organically already on your website. What suggestions do you both have about how we can maximize budget and what types of channels might have our quickest and most affordable bang for our buck in digital marketing?
I'll kind of go, and then Jason, I'd love you to add. I mean, whenever possible, we kind of think like, just like there's a food triangle, we think there's a marketing triangle, right? And SEM is kind of that bottom of the triangle. You know, that search engine marketing is again, it's just taking advantage of people who are just active shoppers. And I think for a lot of my clients, right, it's not just about seeing results. It's I need to see results in this amount of time. I need to fill my fall class. I need to fill my January start, my March start, my summer start. So I think SEM definitely has some of the greatest efficiencies. Now that COVID's over, geofencing, employers, commuter hubs, places where professionals gather, busy professionals gather at Starbucks, they gather, at places like that, Panera Bread cafes. Sometimes it's a great way to reach them. But retargeting them after you've reached them through the mobile geofencing is really important. And also a fairly low CPM, low cost, high yield type of program. Jason, what would you add to that? Because you do so much of this.
I think I would just, I think everything you've said is spot on, Reva. I think I would say SEM is very controllable from a cost perspective. So if you have a limited budget and a very specific goal, we can apply that budget to that goal. And we know that we're going to be, it's intent-based marketing, right? So there's no wasted media. And I think that's maybe the biggest budget killer is, when you're trying to just get your message everywhere all the time, well, then you're going to stumble into that budget roadblock. But when you're putting your message in front of very relevant audiences that are sort of identifying themselves in the market, it's a great way to control that cost. And so SEM is very controllable from a cost perspective. And then, believe it or not, usually adding in another strategy makes something more expensive. But I think when we combine in a measured way, SEM and keyword retargeting, it accomplishes your goal faster. And so you don't have to be in market quite as long if you are looking at a limited scope. So just some extra ideas about controlling costs.
And along those lines, there's a question here about, we're always trying to kind of scramble, especially at our schools that are undergraduate focused, and maybe they're not hitting their numbers or their budget's not where it needs to be. So they come knocking on grad and adults door in June and says, we need numbers in the fall. What kinds of lead time do you kind of recommend or think about in terms of actually having an impact? I think a lot of that's audience dependent, but what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'd love to take that one. You know, there are two really important things to think about with lead time, even with SEM, right? Which, as we talked about, kind of it has that most immediate impact. So if I'm starting classes, let's say August 23rd, right? I really need to be in market by June, maybe even by May. And the reason is, going back to the mindsets, looking at the employment behaviors of these cohorts, they're very busy people. So even though they might be in the committed group, I'm ready to commit to education, it makes sense to go in late August. They still have to juggle childcare or elder care, or they have to talk to their boss about rearranging their schedule. It's not easy today for that person. So giving them lead time to plan their finances is important. So we're really advocating like a 3 to 4 month lead time. Now, there's another reason that I mentioned that, because remember, not everybody's in that committed bucket. Remember the hesitant and the skeptical buckets, and that's still a huge percentage of potential adult learners out there. Research shows that that group of people, they have a longer incubation time. So they might be searching less aggressively, but searching, and they're probably going to take 5 or 6 months to make their decision. So while you're advertising using maybe your SEM or your keyword remarketing or your EDU site retargeting, while you're doing all of that to drive for August, keep in mind that you're still reaching a wealth of could be graduate program enrollees, adult learner program enrollees, and they're probably going to be there for your January start. So again, you're kind of warming the bench for the next class start as well, if that makes sense. So you've got two tracks. You've got like 3 to 4 months for those committed group of education seekers, but you've got about a 5 to 6 month track for the less committed, if that makes sense.
Well, and our members are, I think, pretty adept at using Facebook and Instagram, especially since they're together now in their advertising. And there's a question here related to use of YouTube, which I think is relatively new for all of us, aside from the lift of creating video. But can you talk to the costs of using YouTube advertising versus, Facebook's pretty accessible for most of us, especially for the lay people who don't know a lot about how to effectively use these platforms or how to build ads and so on. But Facebook's pretty easy, pretty economical, and has pretty good targeting. Can you speak to YouTube and the costs there and how they might compare?
Yeah, Jason, do you want to cover that one?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Certainly the YouTube piece does tend to be a little bit more expensive in full transparency. And ultimately, when Reva talks about warming the bench, I think that's the place that I put YouTube into. So we don't always see it as driving a bunch of immediate engagements right away. We see it as something that we want to work one cycle ahead on. And that will impact those Facebook ads. That will impact those search ads, because you've had that 15 to 30 second opportunity to tell your story on YouTube. When they see your ad on Facebook in that critical time period, the few months before you need those enrollments, I think in our experience, you see a higher return on those more economical placements like Facebook and Instagram. But there is definitely more expense on YouTube. We're pretty clear about that up front. And it is a little more sophisticated platform with the variety of targeting options available. Probably something that you'll want a little guidance on if you're going to sort of enter into the world of YouTube.
Yeah, and I think it's important too that folks understand that you can't just do one of these things in a vacuum. And I don't think you're suggesting that either, but I think people need to remember that it's not just, okay, I've got a budget, I'm going to go do search engine marketing, and that's going to solve all my problems. You really have to think omni-channel. So can you speak to your thoughts on maybe kind of, if budget wasn't a serious issue for you, where would you be right now when you're thinking about your audiences? And again, I know it's program specific, it's audience specific, but where do you think if somebody was to assemble, say, a 5-channel kind of omni-channel approach, what kind of channels would you suggest beyond search engine and perhaps paid social?
Sure. So we're very lucky in that many years ago, we developed a practice and we have this next gen custom audience tool, which I love because it just makes it so convenient for our partners. So literally, we take your grad or adult learner prospects, their first name, last name, and email, and then we match them to their Facebook. We can match them to their Instagram. We can match them to their mobile device. We can reach them at home on their different devices there. And then we literally can push ads out on their individual platforms. So as good as your institution is at building your platforms or marketing on Facebook or Instagram, which by the way, double down on that. That's great for anyone to be doing that. It's just a little different because we serve these ads through our social media handle, which is called, College Discovery. So we come across as that kind of independent third-party endorser of a brand, which again, just kind of amplifies the brand, creates some trust in the message, and provides some lift as well as just kind of one-stop shop to do that. So with Next Gen Custom Audience, we already have an omni-channel approach. Now we can add things like YouTube with the affinity group targeting. We can add SEM, for those particular keywords and phrases that are going to marry to those priority programs. We can do the keyword, search remarketing. And then I love programmatic audio. I think there are a lot of adults who use programmatic audio to de-stress, unwind, learn. A lot of podcasts have become very popular. And it's very contextual, right? Because we can choose a genre. And that helps us, again, kind of do that intent-based marketing because we're bringing in the context. Is this ad, is your ad going to fit into the context of the podcast or the music that someone's listening to? Those are some of my faves, Jason. What would you add to that?
Yeah, you've done a great job. I think as far as those 5 channels that you should be, if you've got that prospect pool or that inquiry pool, the Next Gen Custom Audience piece is incredibly valuable because again, there's no media waste there. You're only messaging to your prospects. Reva makes great use of those audio channels. I tend to lean more into the video space just because millennials do express such a strong preference for video experiences. So I think there can be a lot of value to be found across video channels. And so I would probably make sure that was included as well on YouTube.
Great point.
If you were to give some of our attendees some advice on developing video, where would you start? I mean, I know a lot of folks are hesitant because they don't necessarily want to go hire out a full production company. They don't have the money to do that.
Right.
They may have internal resources, but in some cases, I mean, is there value in doing any sort of just kind of static, those videos where you kind of rolling photography with a zoom and a rollover? It's not necessarily a full-on HD video production. What kind of suggestions do you have for people to really crack into this as an entry-level marketing opportunity?
Marcus, I love that you asked the question, or that someone in the audience asked. The one thing that I would probably ask graduate and adult education teams is probably be more vocal in their institution for great imagery, because too often the teams that Jason and I work with are stuck with stock photography, and they'll say, well, it's online, so I'm just going to get a stock photo, or you know what, all the attention goes to undergrad because we're taking a lot of photography for our undergraduate, but we're really not taking a lot of good photography for our graduate or our adult learner classes. The other thing is to have authentic, anytime you can have authentic over stock is great. And the other thing is think about your mindsets. If you're going to do stock photography and you're looking at someone in career through academics, they're interested in the power of your network, the prestige. find an image that conveys that, because that's what's going to appeal to them. If you're looking at someone who's interested in getting that really, higher paying job as soon as they get out of college, they need to see themselves at that job. They need to see some sort of imagery that conveys that they've moved up, right? That they're happier, right? So look for images that convey emotions, that convey the future of what their life would look like after they got this degree. And then you can do a really good job, just as you said, Marcus, where you can take this still imagery, put together some really creative filters, some good music, wrap it around with your brand, and you can create something that is really impactful. We do that with our TikTok advertisers all the time, and it's phenomenal. It works. Jason, anything to add?
At the risk of sounding just a little corny, I would say don't forget the power of that B-roll that maybe you have, that maybe you haven't used. It can be really effective and in putting together, content that isn't as highly produced. And I think frequently in today's world of online media, that's more valuable. Particularly to millennials, they like the not produced, the not overly engineered videos. So it doesn't have to be, HD, ready for the networks type of content. It can be just a little more edgy, and you can really put something together that's really phenomenal with some great B-roll, some strong value propositions. And one last tip I would just say is make it exciting, because you're interrupting whatever this individual is looking for, right? So you've got to give them a reason to keep watching. Make it exciting. Put some some interesting music with it. Some great brand messaging there. It's probably more intimidating than it actually is, I would say.
Great. And I think for most of us, most of our undergrad sides have a lot of B-roll. I know we're sitting on a whole treasure trove of B-roll here. It's just not grad specific.
Yeah.
So definitely look into the resources your campuses have. But thank you all so much for being here. I'm looking at the clock. I know we're pushing right up against 3 o'clock. Several of you have asked about a recording. We will post the recording to the Exchange, the NAGAP member community. So be sure to log in there. Christy should have that up in the next couple of days. We'll also email out the slide deck for everyone so that you have this available to you. Reva and Jason, thank you so much for your expertise and your time today. This is a really great session. And of course, the continued support of ACT and NRCCUA. So thank you all so much and hope you all have a great day.
Thank you. Take
Thanks,
care, everyone.
Marcus. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.